or we'll catch up where we got left off. So we're doing some Kerbal Space Program today. We're picking up on our career mode with mostly ethical space agency, where we have apparently 69 science. Nice. Just the way it ended up being. So where we left off, we did manage to get our shuttle home and everything. Both the one that we had originally talked about, like last stream, where we had 10 people stuck in space and all that, and then the other one. So that's the probe going to Eve. There, I think that's the one I need. What I'm trying to find... Yeah, okay. So, this is what we had left off, is we got Bill and Valentina Kerbin. They did a rescue mission on the second space shuttle. The space shuttle is just when I do the moon mission. I seem to not quite be able to, do the entire, Actually, I have no idea which way we're going. I can't quite get the shuttle there, landed, and back. All in one go. The last time, I was able to get the shuttle there, landed into moon orbit, but I didn't have enough fuel to get us home. I got a good chunk of the way home. I think it probably only needed maybe 100 or 200 MS or Delta V more. And we would have been able to take the shuttle from the ground into orbit, get out to the moon, orbit the moon, land on the moon, take back off, orbit the moon, and get back. But we got all the way to that last stage, and I just came up shy, like I said. Maybe, I would guess, maybe 200 Delta V short. Which is not nothing. 200 Delta V is actually a decent amount, but not that bad when we're talking in space. So right now what I'm doing is I'm taking my periapsis down to, we're going to go all the way down to 55. This isn't our space shuttle. This is a pretty solidly able to take some abuse lander. So what we're doing now is I'm just going to bring it on up, and we're just going to smash on into the atmosphere. We got a heat shield, we got a pod, we got a whole bunch of stuff. This thing should be able to take a pretty good amount of abuse before we're in any real danger. There's something I'm forgetting. Okay, so let's wait till we get a little bit closer. It's not the science. There's no science for us to really have here right now. Alright. We're just going to burn all the fuel we can to rob us of our momentum, bring that down, smack into the surface. But yeah. Oh, let's go to quick save. Because this little last piece here, all the rest of that detaches, and there's just a bunch of parachutes and all that. So it's just a pod with a heat shield and a bunch of parachutes. It looks like we're probably coming down for a water landing, so that'll be fine. And then this jet doesn't have enough TWR. I mean, actually, that has enough TWR. We could probably break Kerbal's gravity. We don't have the Delta V for it. I say we could just keep on burning that up. We were no longer considered in orbit. We're just trying to burn off as much of that fuel as we can, because that'll help with the process of coming down. And it's not like I get to keep it. It is going to smash into something. Alright. And it's almost time. Yeah, once we have that, we don't have anyone else out that's like our people stranded. We have been doing rescue missions as they come up. What exploded? Nothing's overheating so far. I'm a little concerned that something exploded very violently when we staged. I'm also concerned that I do still see the liquid booster attached to us right now. We should not be seeing the liquid booster still attached to us. We might have a design flaw that survived Q&A. Okay, what I think happened there is I think the rest of that rocket was maybe attached to the heat shield and not the coupler. Luckily, I jettisoned it and it unstuck. Either way, it looks like we're definitely fine. But there was definitely a momentary being like, something exploded that was not intended to explode, and we don't know what it was. Yeah, and I was thinking about that it could be the wind resistance of the rocket that had expended, holding it in place. But then when things started to properly slow down, it's like, no, this should have probably fallen away by now. It could still be. But it's more the concern of the explosion, which was at the coupler. I think we're also getting wonky physics, because that, in theory, this is no longer considered attached. So, like, we have this heat shield somehow stuck to this, when we are definitely slowed down to the point. You check the mission log, right? Oh man, the mission log. I gotta remember where that's located. Been a real hot minute. You get post mission for sure. Yep. And that's looking pretty promising. We're just gonna fast forward so we're closer to the water. Alright. And then we'll check what new missions we've got available now. We still got, I think, 2 people want to land on the moon and come home. I think we're gonna wait on that until we have like another full payload and we could use the money, because those are missions that I have like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to do. So it's kind of one of those things that I could just choose to ignore them until we're like, oh, we're down to like the last 100 days. Let's get this sorted real quick. Because even when we have rescues and all that, they usually don't get past like 5 or 6 days. Maybe a little more. It's stuff like getting the probe to Eve that we kind of have to be like, okay, you know, this needs to be scheduled a bit in advance. Alright. And splashdown. I'm pretty sure we've gotten all the reports we would want from that. Okay. That's the rescue team home. Okay. Not seeing anything of significance here. There are messages. I'm thinking what happened is I just didn't have the coupler. Like, it did the thing where you put the coupler, but you, like, couple this spot when you meant to couple after the heat shield, that kind of thing. So it looks right, but they're actually off a little. So I don't want to test things. Testing things, like, unless it's just, like, literally at the launch pad, sometimes I'll do it. I mean, that is what that is. I might just leave that alone, though. I don't care that much. Build a new orbital station for this agency that can port 10 Kerbals in orbit around Kerbin. I get a bunch of reputation for that. And you want me to do the same, but for 5 Kerbins around MinMus. And that's 17 years I've got to do that. So I'll grab you. I will grab the one for MinMus. Position a satellite in a specific orbit around Kerbin. Rescue a person who is stranded around low moon orbit. You got 10 years for that one. Let's see. Build a new orbital station around the moon that can support 17 Kerbals. 17 Kerbals around the moon. And I got basically 11 years to do that one. I am going to grab that one as well. We're not going to do it for a while. Love the time for these. Yeah, we need someone trapped in the moon. No rush, though. Hey, man, they got snacks. It's fine. So then we have one of a new orbital station on a solar orbit that could support 7 Kerbals. So it's going to have us build a lot of space stations. Rescue. Okay. We've got a moon surface rescue. That'll work out because I got 2 people I need to take to the moon. We've got 10 years on that one. The satellite to a specific spot, I don't really care that much. It'll give me 5 science, which doesn't mean anything. I don't care about this one either, so we're gonna leave those ones alone. Okay. Because I'm sitting at $4 million because we are getting work done. Oh, I should probably be checking what are actual contracts we do have. So in the contracts we do have, we have rescue someone from the surface of the moon. We have get the satellite to Eve, which we do already have the rocket out there doing. It's just busy being in orbit waiting for its opportunity to drop in on Eve. We have a station with 7 Kerbals in solar orbit. We have a station that can support 17 Kerbals in moon orbit. We have to rescue someone from orbit around the moon. We build a station around MinMus that could support... let's see here. I can support 5 Kerbals. And I think that's when we would orbit it, complete the contract, and then immediately fly home with it. If we get the science stuff... The science lab is the next thing I need to unlock with my research, is what needs to happen. We need an orbital station around Kerbin that supports 10 Kerbals. We gotta bring a moonstone back that's using a rover. We don't have that yet. We have someone to rescue from Kerbin orbit. We have the repair the satellite. I might actually just decline this one and take the 1 hit. Because that one's just a whole big thing. The pay is actually pretty low. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel that contract. Ferry 2 to the moon. And then you want me to dock around the moon. So we might go ahead and dock 2 vehicles around the moon. And then do the rescue from moon orbit. Well, actually, So, build an orbital station around MinMus. 5 Kerbals. There needs to be 2 pilots on the station. So, again, my plan there would be to get them out there and just bring them home. Alright, let's do MinMus. Let's just do MinMus. It's been a long time coming. Let's do MinMus. You two just want a suborbital flight around Kerbal. That's going to happen when I'm doing this stuff anyways, so welcome aboard. And then we don't care about those two. Alright, let's go ahead and start getting this planned. So the goal is MinMus. Now, I have no idea what the requirements for MinMus are relative to the moon, but we've got the... What am I looking right here? Which... Oh, that'll be the Kerbal one. So there's MinMus out there. So it's way farther out than the moon. I don't know the Delta V requirements to get into orbit and back out. I also don't remember the size of these relative to each other, because the larger the celestial object, the more it has a tendency to pull you in. The easier it is to, like, actually make your way there. Let's hide all of our research stuff. Right, and we canceled that contract. So we can get rid of the damaged satellite. They're not going to bother repairing it. That one, we already rescued the person from this one. These two we haven't rescued, and we haven't rescued Jespuri. So we got 3 rescues, and then we've got our ship here that, it's been on its mission for 130 days. That's what this timer is up here. It's basically being like, hey, check back with that satellite, see if you got a good drop-in on Eve yet. Because I think you've got like 15 years to finish that contract. So the goal would be to get to MinMus. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Okay, so we're gonna make great decisions on this one, because what I'm going to want to do here is we need to have 2 pilots on the rocket, but then I'm going to bring 2 tourists who didn't ask to go nearly this far. Actually, I'm not going to worry about the tourists. So we need 2 pilots as part of this. I do think I am going to bring a larger crew, though. And the reasoning behind bringing the larger crew is just for the sake... Oh, wait, there's a requirement to how many people you can bring. Or how many people you have to bring. So this is the MinMus mission. You need to have 2 pilots and be able to support 5 Kerbals. So we've got 2, and I'll need to bring enough room for 4 more. Or sorry, 3 more. But they come in like 2 or 4, so we'll need to have 4 more. In that case, don't use the big pod. We could save a little bit of weight there. Actually, yeah, so you weigh twice as much. You have a 5 on your reaction wheel. You have a 5 on your reaction wheel. Okay. Yeah, so this, I mean, honestly, it's not that much heavier. Hey, Pagey Cakes, how's it going? Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll put up the Mark II. We've got the Mark II here. We're gonna go ahead and follow it here. So let's see. Just checking. let's see, max safe deploy speed. Alright, so that's a much bigger chute. I see. I mean, for what we're bringing home, we can use you. We'll do our drag chutes like we've been doing. It worked out very well for us, so I don't see a reason to change. We are planning on bringing significantly more, so we will put like the extra set of like normal chutes. Okay, so there's our 2, and we need room for 3 more people on board. We can go in here real fast. So this is 2 people. We can do better. That is 4 people. It'd be nice if there was one in between those sizes, because we could do something like this, and that gives us our 4 people, which is how we ended up with the shuttle last time, is I set that up, and then I was like, well, I don't want to deal with all the rest of this junk, and then we made it look like a shuttle. And of course, neither of those are the right size to fit this. Let's see. We can check here for payload. I was hoping there'd be one there. And unfortunately, none of those are marked for people. That's kind of the one thing, is just kind of wanting something between these 2 sizes that could handle 3 would be the ideal. But something not quite as cursed. I think in this case, I'd lean towards the smaller one before the bigger one. Yeah, so go here. Let's grab the reaction wheel we can use on the other part. Oh, we'll probably want to give you a battery. So let's go ahead and do the payload. Snap you on. Open you up. And then we can put our science storage in here because we're going to a new place. We want to science it up. There's our science storage. I'll put 2 of the goo pods in here. Since those are a one and done, other than the scientist resetting it. We'll have our thermometers and all that. We can go to our power storage. And hey, Page of Cakes, thank you so much for the 125 stream streak. I do appreciate it. Okay, so we got our science in here. We're going to want our heat shield. So this is the return lander. So with the return lander, well, not really lander, but where we're going to return to Kerbal, what we could do here. So put 2 parachutes there. And 2 parachutes there. And that should be way overkill. In this save, we're getting ready to go to MinMus. Historically, I have been to all the planets when the game was fairly new. I did not end up getting back to the point of, as they added, like, I haven't landed on any of, like, where the meteors and all that can go around. You can land on the random celestial objects. Like, there weren't random celestial objects the last time I played to go to. Okay. So this is the return craft for when we get back to Kerbal. We will be putting... For the mission, I'm required to have 2 pilots. There's pilots 1 and 2. We'll bring the scientists. And if we're going to do this, we are going to give our other people way more than they bargained for, or, if we're being honest, probably wanted. Where there's someone who's like, you know what I want to do? I want to orbit Kerbal. Hey man, I know you said you wanted to orbit Kerbal. How do you feel about going all the way to MinMus and back? Alright, so we've got this. So the next stage here is going to be kind of our deep space rocket. This is where we're going to try and get to MinMus itself. I am going to try... and do this. So I believe for this, the Terrier's our most efficient engine. So it's 663 Delta V. Oh, before I forget, reaction wheel. There we go. Power. I'm gonna go ahead and put a couple different sets of solar panels on here, because that's been a problem in some of our past journeys. There's a bunch of random solar panels. Alright. That's 652 Delta V. That'd be our deep space movement. The other possibility, we can grab you up here. Is they do one of these. Oh, you know what? Hang on. As we're doing our math with this, I didn't set it to, I didn't set it to being in vacuum. They weren't getting the right Delta V. Okay, so 660, but if we go here and say, but in vacuum, that's 2,600 in Delta V. Which is probably enough to insert into orbit and get back. I do think I am going to go for that, to try and not have as much mass to throw around. We are going to put the coupler here. So stage those together, so coupler pops off, immediately goes on. Then you kick in, and then we're going to give you the big old mainsail. So let's see, so you get 3,700 there. Honestly, you don't change much Delta V depending on where you're going. I haven't looked at all these. So the mainsail is 310 in space. You get 350. I was seeing if there's one of these that was just particularly... I mean, that's 355. That's the next size smaller. Yeah, so this would be... Yeah, the poodle... The poodle here is the big one for in space. So yeah, so you have horrific fuel efficiency here. So we're gonna put the poodle here. So in the vacuum, that gives me 4,000, but on ground, it's horrifically bad Delta V. So this might be the point that we stop doing this. Get you out of here. There you go. So that is our space stage. Okay. Let's get in vacuum. That's 5,800 Delta V. At sea level, it's bad. So then my workaround for that problem is we're gonna do something a little cursed here. You have the hydraulic clamps here. And rather than make good life decisions, we're gonna make bad life decisions. And why use less fuel when we can use more? And then these will be mainsails. Okay, and in case we have any spare fuel here, we don't want to waste it. So put those wired in there. And we'll switch the order here. Okay. So the plan here would be, if we get this whole thing up into space and these still got a bunch of fuel in them, we would manually turn those off, leave the Poodle on, because the Poodle's way more efficient on its fuel. Oh, everyone's home now. No one's stranded. We're making our way towards MinMus. Okay, and just a little aerodynamics for the tip here. Alright. So with this, we've got 2,251 delta V there. The TMR is about 1, which is not great. Or TWR. I keep saying TMR. But once I get to space, it is interesting with the staging here. It's showing this as having 0 delta V, but it is attributed kind of to there. Good time to use those funky fuel tanks. Those huge cones could have gone in the boosters. Yeah, no, we could have absolutely done this. These are liquid, so I'm just putting more fuel in there. We're not being efficient. So this is not going to have a great TWR to begin with. That will fix itself, that as we burn and the fuel starts to go down, the TWR will go up because we'll be lifting more weight. We are making just a honking heavy rocket. I am tempted to put a second set of boosters on here that are solid rocket boosters just to help out with that first stage. Which is probably not the play. But I mean, that hasn't stopped me so far, so... And these ones are just going to put the normal cones on them. Because I can take the time to wire the fuel through and all. I mean... The problem is I'd want to wire them into the center area. And the center area isn't going to use any fuel at all till these are expended. That's fine. We can make it work. I haven't even looked at... Oh yeah, those are the cone covers. I'm going to go ahead and use the funky fuel tanks. Okay, and then aerodynamic for the last little bit. And then we can take a fuel line here. Alright, and we can go back here to aerodynamics. It's making sure it didn't list lift. Some of these are like actual wings that'll give you lift, and then you get weird stuff where you start corkscrewing and all that. Okay, so let's drag you. You're gonna pop off around there. You're gonna happen at the same time this is going on, and that puts us right in the sweet spot, TWR. Yeah, so we'll expend these, then we switch over to the other rockets, and then we slowly work our way up. This ultimately is what comes home. This is a hot mess of a disaster. This is probably one that's going to need struts, because we are talking a lot of weight. We're just going to tether them all together. And then we're going to want to go in here. Alright, we don't have anything like weird corkscrew. We've got solar, we've got a reaction wheel, we've got parachutes, we've got all that. I think our staging is set up right. We might have to tweak it just based on the timing. That says we only have 800 Delta V, but that's because we're going to burn off these, and that's just going to cut down. And then this is where the main Delta V comes from. That's part of this stage. So we'll get that all going. We kick on the Poodle when we hit space, and then we should have almost 6,000 Delta V to get us out to MinMus and then bring us home. I haven't done the MinMus trip in a very long time, so I don't really know. That is way off. I don't really know exactly how much Delta V is reasonable for that. MinMus, maybe. Mark 1. And save. Alright, and we got our people on board. We got our 2 pilots for the mission objective, an engineer and a scientist, just because. We've got all you down here. We're not going to be landing, we're just doing an orbit. So let's try and make that happen. Let's see if Amelia collapses off of the pad because the Kraken gets summoned. Okay, the Kraken has not been summoned. And then the goal is going to be MinMus as our target. I'm going to snooze the ad for a minute so you can actually see the takeoff. Pop you out real fast. And we'll start throttling this down as the load lightens to prolong how long we're using the liquid fuel over the solid rocket booster. That way we're not fighting air resistance more than we have to. I can pull this pin out to watch for when those external tanks run out. Then we hit space, it should fire off those side panels. We are leaning to the left a little bit, which I'm not loving. Okay, throttle it back up, prepping for the boosters to pop. Oh, I was looking at the wrong ones. Okay, so we lost probably a bit of Delta V there from just dragging weight I didn't need to drag. Alright. And we're just continuing our burn. Starting to taper those down. Let's kick you off. Shut down engine. Shut down engine. Turn you on. And we're just slowly depleting these fuel tanks. And then they'll pop off. New plan, we goofed. Activate. Activate. Throttle them back up. And I'm gonna thrust. We got Cannonhawk with 180 stream streak, and the very last Sardine with their 15 stream streak. And if I didn't catch it already, Pagey Cakes with their 125 stream streak. All appreciated. Okay, so I was hoping to cut off the mainsails earlier and run on the Poodle longer, because the Poodle's more efficient. It's not so efficient that it's like, oh no, we could definitely go and just, you know, use that instead. I'll start tapering that down. I need to be thrusting quite that hard. Just trying to keep it at about 1 minute out. Okay, so we got almost 6,000 Delta V left in this thing. We're not quite in orbit yet. So I do think those extra liquid rocket boosters on the sides might not make sense. What I might actually do is put like a very small fuel tank behind this one, put another mainsail here, have those cross-feed into the mainsail to kick those off using the mainsail until we're out in the vacuum proper. Yeah, because we're right about to cross over. The point where, yeah, we just passed our apoapsis. We're losing some efficiency here. But the idea being using the mainsail back here on Will. Did you ever use solid fuel SRBs? Yeah, we did that in this launch. This was the one that's kind of the exception where I had multiple of the liquid main boosters and all that, but I did have SRBs on the outside of that to get at the TWR I needed for the launch. And then as like the fuel started to burn down and they ran out, we kicked them off, and then the liquid had an appropriate TWR to keep doing its thing. Yeah, we're wasting probably a good 200 or 300 more Delta V than we should be for this takeoff, or for this orbit. It was partly my bad on shutting off the mainsails too early. And I do think it might actually have been better to not go quite the route I did with so far as the engine setup. I'm just trying to use the Poodle because it does give like an extra 5% efficiency, because it's 355 ISP as opposed to, I think the other ones are like 340 or 330 ISP. Which all you need to know about that is bigger number mean go longer on the fuel you have, which broadly means you'll get more Delta V on the other side of it relative to the use of other engines. Usually it's less thrust, more efficiency. That said, we're still going to be somewhere around 5,000 Delta V left. Like ion engines. Yeah, no, the ion engines have an extremely good ISP rating. But, their overall thrust is, like, really non-existent. Oh. This is really bad, is when you dip back into the atmosphere. Alright, this is a completely flubbed one. Vehicle assembly. We're gonna make adjustments. So I think we do here is, I wonder actually even if I have to have the... We'll put you on there. And we can have you pop when it's time to kick you in. Now I'm wondering, can I just straight up put the rocket down there? You'll be here with the other ones. And can I just fuel line directly to that? Because I genuinely don't know. I don't think you can. I think it needs to go to a tank. But I've also never tried. We could try that same thing, and then the idea is we keep it all running, and then once we get to the point that we're in vacuum, pushing the edge of, like, pushing the edge of... Well, I can get going on here. I should have that showing for the Delta V. Or not the Delta V, TWR. Just like before, we're going to keep throttling down our liquid, as the solid rocket boosters reduction in weight keeps us in a good TWR. And then once we get up to the point where the solid rocket boosters are effectively expended. Yeah, so solid rocket boosters effectively expended all the liquid fuel in them. As soon as they're out, we just cut them loose. Then the mainsails can take over. And then the idea here would be that once we've reached the point here where we go to vacuum, I kick off the mainsail on the back to get the poodle. Because the poodle's more space efficient. Now granted, the extra weight... Yeah, we saved everyone from the moon. The extra weight of the extra mainsail might take away any benefit from having it. Well, that's actually more thrust than I really need. Alright. And the reason we're not trying to push the TWR too hard is if we go way too fast, we start slamming into the atmosphere at very high speeds and we start getting way more drag. And then, like, all the benefit you get from all that tends to be just lost. Just trying to throttle this back. Trying to keep our apoapsis out about 1 minute. 1 minute 30 or something like that. Okay, so we no longer care about the TWR. We're in vacuum. So I kick off the mainsail to get a more efficient poodle in place. All right. And little by little, our apoapsis is going to start leveling out. Our angle's going to start leveling out as we approach the apoapsis. And the more it levels out, the more it'll make a difference to our periapsis. But I am taking a much wider orbit than I necessarily need to, or probably should. Okay, nothing I need to worry about right now. And just feathering this back or forth. Now for efficiency, I shouldn't be doing it this way. I should be trying to keep the orbit fairly tight. But I'm just kind of like doing a very, very, very slow burn and just letting it kind of do its thing. And now we're just fully open on the poodles. And hopefully here we will manage to get our periapsis pulled up before it's too late. Because we do need to get to like 2100 ms is roughly what it should take us to get into orbit. The rate of which we pick up our orbital speed should improve over time, but I'm still a little concerned that using that much liquid rocketry is potentially not working out for us that great. Let's lock you around here and have you stop following that plane. Okay. Alright. So we're getting there. We're still 30 seconds out from the apoapsis. So we're definitely going to go past the apoapsis, but this is looking a bit better for us getting in actual reasonable orbit. Pretty soon as we start going, our apoapsis will start going down, but our periapsis will come up faster. But it is going to be less efficient. We're going to kind of be fighting the way the rocket wants to move with its already existing momentum. But the important thing is to get the periapsis up so we don't slam into the ground, because the periapsis is the lowest point of the orbit. And when the lowest point of the orbit is inside the planet, it's not great. It is solidly in the bad man end of things. All right, so the apoapsis is starting to come down. The good news is, like I said, we should end up having over 50 or over 5,000 delta V when we're in orbit, which is kind of the goal of why we're making such a massive rocket, is the ability to get out to MinMus and hopefully have enough fuel to come back. If I had the science lab unlocked, then I would go and make a permanent station over there to keep beaming me back science. But in this particular case, I don't. So we're planning to go there, get a bunch of science as we're completing our mission objectives, and then we're going to come back. Which should give me more than enough science to then unlock the science lab, and then it'll be worth looking, being like, okay, you want me to put a station in Kerbin's orbit. Okay, we're actually going to take the time to do that, and set it up right, and keep it, because then they can start bleeding me a bunch of science over time. Alright. We're still pretty near our apoapsis so far as height-wise. we're not gaining or bringing our periapsis up nearly as fast as I'd like. This is a very heavy rocket, so it doesn't like to move much very fast. It's got a lot of potential energy in it. It just doesn't have a lot of, like, right now energy. Got a lot of endurance, but not a lot of go. But like I said, 2100 MS is roughly what we would need to have in orbit. I have literally never modded Kerbal Space Program. Like, not a single mod ever. I never felt the need to. I have modded other games, but that's usually because the other games have some pain point that becomes very frustrating for me that I'm trying to resolve. Like, with RimWorld, there was the, Blight was kind of the thing that broke me into the mods, was early RimWorld Blight was just obnoxious to deal with, where you had to, like, zone your pawns down to just the field and max out their responsibility on Blight. And even then, sometimes they would be good about it, other times, because there are things they just wouldn't work on it for a little bit. And so it was kind of one of those things that you just got mods. And all the mods I usually did was made it so you could tell them to right-click, and they would keep pulling up the blade until they either broke or it was done. Alright, so we're definitely getting in orbit this time, but we did burn a lot more Delta V than it should have taken for me to get this orbit. And once we get the orbit, we're going to see how much Delta V it takes us to get out to MinMus. And then just know it's going to be a similar amount of Delta V to get back from MinMus. It'll probably be actually significantly less Delta V, like significantly less, but it does give us kind of a baseline of, here's where to start thinking about this. Where do we want to go from there kind of deal. Okay, our periapsis is no longer inside the planet. The game is recognizing that we are in orbit now. But I need to bring this up to about 70,000 kilometers. Otherwise, we'll dip into the atmosphere. Okay, so with this, throttle down. Alright, so let's plan our maneuver. So, we are trying to get to MinMus, and I do not remember what orientation you want MinMus relative to where you're going, because I usually just don't remember those things at large. Now, we do have a couple of options here. One is we can just straight up go for it. That appears to be around 800 Delta V. The other option is you can actually slingshot off the moon. Because as you can see, with the slingshotting off the moon, you save yourself a bunch of Delta V. Because you use the moon's gravity to pull you past the moon, which causes you to break orbit faster. So that gives us a MinMus encounter there. But where would MinMus be relative to you? Because you're not showing me what I'm looking for. Okay, so regardless, I think we slingshot off the moon. I think this is going to be step one. To get ourselves lined up there, and then we can see what we can do to adjust this to pull me into a way we can reasonably pull ourselves into orbit. You'll be loosely in that direction. Come on. Got a big burn to do here. Come on, come on. Gonna be starting this burn soon. Okay, we've got our burn going. Like I said, it looks like it's going to cost me about 800 fuel. So we assume 800 fuel to get out, maybe 500 or 600 fuel to then make it in orbit. And then you'd assume like maybe 800 fuel back. I should literally have thousands of extra fuel. We're not trying to land on MinMus. This time we're just doing a pass, we're doing some science, all that good stuff. Okay, so as we speed up, whatever side of the orbit you're on, when you're speeding up or accelerating, or like you're speeding up or slowing down, you'll typically see it affect the opposite side of the orbit. Because if I'm going this way, because the whole, you orbit a planet by, like, trying to hit and missing, or like, falling and missing. So like, we're falling so fast forward that we just keep falling around it. So if we're looking at our lateral motion, then gravity bends us in. You know, the slower you are, the closer the bend is, the farther you are, the wider the bend goes out. It'll be seen on the other side, because we're kind of moving sideways here. It's just, we move sideways and gravity pulls us in. There's a good chance I'm gonna have to tweak this to see like where this actually ends up. We do want the gravity assist. We don't want the gravity assist to be so strong it hucks us like out of this whole area. But we can adjust as we need. First we kind of get the distance, then we can kind of try and tweak the orbit a little forward, a little farther back by doing all that kind of stuff. And we've almost finished our burn. I know I at least want to get it out to this range. Ideally where we do see where it says there's going to be a MinMus interaction. Because that means it'll be in MinMus's gravity, and then it's a matter of like, can we slow down in time? Okay, so it is showing that we're going to have a MinMus interaction. Cool. So we're not going to get much gravity assist here. We're getting a little bit, but it's just this tiny little area there, so we're going to do what we can. Let's warp here. Because then the question is, once I enter the moon's orbit, if I adjust... Just that plane to put us a little bit more precisely on target. I'm a little scared about what looks like almost directly slamming into MinMus. Like almost perfectly slamming into MinMus. I don't think that's what we want. But we just slow it down just a smidge. We'll just barely lead ahead of the planet. So it is a 1 second burn. And that should put us on target to be a lot better situated to get into orbit on MinMus. And I just realized, did you require a docking port? Don't you dare say you required a docking port. It's not you. Okay, cool. It doesn't. I had... Oh, wait. Yes, it does. It needs a docking port to qualify. Okay. Alright, so in the design, is there anything I feel like I should change? Oh. That happens sometimes. You put in all the time, and then realize you don't actually have what you need. So let's double check our instructions. So, the requirements for the one going for MinMus is it must have a docking port. Docking port, right there. It must have the ability to make power. We have solar panels, so we're good. And it must be fully assembled at launch. It has to have an antenna. Okay. Refer to the vehicle assembly building. Alright. Save that. Make sure everyone's on board. Okay. Was there anything we wanted to change here? It worked out relatively well. The one big thing is getting our orbits sorted out. We aren't doing great on actually rounding our orbit out. That's fine. Like, it looks like we're going to have a lot of spare fuel on that last one, that even though we lost so much efficiency because of being on the downside of the apoapsis, trying to fight desperately to get our orbit situated. We could potentially help with that by, once we get to where our orbit's going to be around there, switching you immediately over to doing the prograde. And that's just basically, once you get the orbit up to like this angle, telling it, hey, keep that angle. So 14,000. I'm just going to tell it to snap over to prograde and we'll see how it goes. Oh, that's an aggressive snap. Okay, so we'll see how that goes. So we definitely turned the rocket way earlier this time. Start backing this off. Let's try it this way. We aim way steeper. Okay, we are over to the poodle now. Yeah, if I go directly horizontal, even more than directly horizontal, I'm gonna push down our apoapsis. And just force ourselves into orbit as fast as we can. Okay. We're sacrificing a lot of apoapsis to just push ourselves into, you know, bringing ourselves into a proper orbit as quickly as we can. We'll see if this goes much better. And then we can try for the MinMus again, because unfortunately the last time I just goofed. I didn't put the instruments it wanted on me. We could extend the antenna just because we can. Gonna lower it again. Just sacrificing apoapsis for periapsis. But it is one of those things that, like, when you get to the farther and farther out targets, it tends to slow things down. That's one of the reasons why when it comes to doing the content creator side of stuff like Kerbal Space Program, the early game is really good. Like, you're just trying to get rockets off the pad and all that stuff, especially when you're new to the game. There's just so much figuring things out and, okay, let me try this. The rocket corkscrews out of control and explode. You're like, all right, well, that didn't work. Okay, let me try this. And you see the engines like kick on full force, and the rocket just sits there because you didn't have enough thrust to overcome all the fuel you added to it, and all that stuff. And those earlier ones, where you're just going to the moons, like the entire mission, you might get there and back in under like a real world hour, maybe 2 or whatever, doing everything involved with it. That could be fun. But once you're starting to push, like, oh, I'm going to the equivalent of Pluto. That's a mission you could set up and send on its way and then do like 10 or so hour-long missions in between. You could just fast forward through the whole thing. But then it's like, okay, in the game time, 10 years have passed. Alright, we're right about to get to the point of being in orbit, and we're just now getting ready to hit our apoapsis. This has been a much, much cleaner orbit. We're probably going to come out of this thing with like 4,900, 5,000 Delta V to spare. Let's put you on the prograde. Because you just follow that over the horizon line and just keep your speed going. So we should see it flip to being considered in orbit now. Probably in the next 10 seconds or so. As opposed to just launching away from Kerbal and then falling right back in on it. Alright. There's where the camera considers us in orbit. That said, that orbit right now isn't stable, because we would dip back into the atmosphere once we hit about 70,000. And you're wondering how we know these things. Like, there's the one side of, like, looking it up, but there's a big gauge on the top that says atmosphere. And there's an area where, like, it stops being marked there, that once you get past there, you don't have to worry. And that's all stuff that I can't remember if the game actually teaches it to you so much as when you've played it a couple of times, you notice places where problems happen. So same as last time, we're going to add a maneuver. The target is MinMus. And while I don't need it, I'm going to see if I can use a moon assist. Okay, that's too close of a moon slingshot. Alright. So there you are. Not quite as lined up this time. The last one we had a really good lineup, so it's a shame that we didn't have things where they needed to be. Alright, so not super clean, but that will work. So it's SAS. It's going to be roughly pro grade, because that is what we're trying to do, is go with our orbit and just keep firing away. Now, we do know that it's going to take a hot minute to get there. We got 17 minutes. Let's go ahead to around 5 minutes out, so that way we can make sure we hit this a little bit better this time. Okay, so 6 minutes out. Alright, we got the wiggle going on. That happens sometimes. Alright, so I'm a little concerned about that. Because of how fast we're firing early, it wants me to dip towards the atmosphere. I don't think I'm down for that. So let's burn our way around a little bit farther. Because as we go along, we're going to bring that around. Because it's mostly caring about what gets me to where it wants me to go. Not what makes sense relative to the planet we're hovering over. Okay, we can start adjusting that. Just making sure periapsis doesn't actually dip below 70 kilometers before I hit it. Okay, so we got the burn going here. Our apoapsis is coming out as fast as possible. Just like last time, we're going to do a moon assist, and you don't need the moon assist. Like, very genuinely, the moon assist isn't actually saving me that much. Maybe 50, 60 delta V. Partly because of this. The hope is I can get into this area, and just like last time, kind of throttle down to bring this more, like, to bring us just about into the inner setup on MinMus. Sometimes you can do that kind of stuff, sometimes you can't. Alright, this is the big maneuver we have this whole time, is just getting ourselves out. Alright, just keeping an eye on things, make sure. Just making sure we don't have anything I gotta worry about. There we go. Okay. So the burn's looking good. And you can get bigger thrusters that make the burns not take as long, but it's kind of the track, you know, adjusting efficiency for more just immediate go. A lot of times, the farther out your destination is, the more you have to care about efficiency. It's not a game you have to, like, super duper min-max. There is the ability to slap more rockets onto it and give it a thumbs up and go. It's definitely not the best strategy, but it does work. You can kind of hit limits on where you can get away with that before things become utter chaos, but you can get away with a lot more than you'd expect. And it is a pretty standard start for a lot of people when they start Kerbal Space Program. Is they will start by, you know, they'll kind of get what they want, and it'll just go, oh, well, I just need a little bit more, and they'll slap more rockets onto it. And it'll get them to their destination, and as long as you're playing in, like, just your regular sandbox mode, you can just get away with that. And for those who don't know, there's the 3 different modes. There's career mode, sandbox mode, and then science mode. And then sandbox is, you just do what you want. It's kind of what it is. Just do space things. So this did not get us our expectations. Hey, Sparks, thank you so much for the raid. We are trying to fix whatever we've done here, but I hope you had yourself a good stream for the rest of the stream. I know I was hanging out there for a little while earlier when you're playing some farm sim. Had to duck right around the time you got to doing some KSP, because I had to do my thing. So we're no longer going for the moon assist here. We are just going for MinMus Direct. But for those that don't know, Sparks TV, absolutely fantastic content creator, someone I highly recommend checking out. Also plays games like Kerbal Space Program and Farm Sim and a bunch of the other stuff we've got here. Okay, so that would give us a very, very little reaction here. Can I adjust you to a better position to where I can get a longer reaction? I probably can by waiting till we're closer to the apoapsis and adjusting there. And thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, because the more I move this out, the less efficient the burn. Okay, we can give ourselves a little bit of a moon assist now. We can get that angle right, we can get these two to meet. But thank you for all those follows. Well, again, check out Sparks. Absolutely fantastic. Usually streams before I do. What I'm trying to do... See, we can't burn this where instead of just hurling myself out past it, then trying to cut off all that speed. Alright. So, that gives me a MinMus encounter, and we will be leading it, and we will be on the slow side, so I could probably go around here and start killing my momentum as much as possible to pull myself into orbit. Alright. And for those who don't know what we got going on here, basically I've got a contract here where I need to set up a space station around MinMus. It just has a bunch of conditions. I make it float around there for a couple of seconds, and then after we got paid with our money, we're just taking the space station home because they didn't bother to put in their contract that they wanted to keep the space station. So, you know, that's a them problem if I've ever heard of one. So let's go ahead and fast forward time to when we need to do that maneuver. But for those who don't know me, I am Rual Storge. I do play a variety of games here on Twitch. I play a lot of, like, simulation games, settlement builders, city builders, these type of games. We've been doing a lot of Farm Sim 25, doing the Survivor Man Challenge, and Kerbal Space Program recently. We're going to be doing a sponsored segment a little bit, not too long from now, of War Tales, which is a turn-based strategy game. I don't tend to do too many of those, though I do enjoy them. But that should be fun, and we'll probably do that for a couple of hours. And then most likely we'll either be doing more Kerbal Space Program, the Farm Sim, Survivor Man Challenge, or they did add for News Tower, they added a hard mode, and I've been talking about maybe doing the hard mode, which is a game where it's kind of a tycoon game based in the 1930s, where you run a fledgling newspaper agency, and it's pretty cool. You don't know about on the game, but this week is Las Palmas Gran Garcia. I mean, I don't think the game has anything going on with that, but just a little bit more. I just want to see. Give me the interaction, please. Alright, let's cancel that. Okay. So I could probably fix this by going to, while we're here. So slowing down creates more problems, so we'll speed it up just a little bit. That's for WRC. I don't know what WRC is in this context. Yes, it's not exactly what I wanted, but I do think it'll be workable. So let's go ahead and get ourselves to the moon encounter, because we're going to use the moon to either slingshot ourselves forward or back. World Rally Championship? Gotcha. So admittedly, while I play lots and lots of simulation games, I'm not a farmer, I'm not a construction worker, I haven't done racing or anything like that. I used to play more racing games. I actually don't play that many racing games these days. Like, to date myself, Need for Speed Underground was kind of my last racing game I put any real time into. When it comes to simulation, I tend to do a lot more, like, American Truck Simulator, Euro Truck Simulator, Farm Sim. I've done a bit of construction simulator, these kind of games. Like, no judgment against any of those games. I just tend not to end up getting, playing them very much. I'm a little concerned that line seems to be bisecting MinMus, which would imply smacking into MinMus at speed coming around. But I do feel like that's a very salvageable thing where, as we start getting there, I can start killing thrust to either pull myself into an orbit or whatever. And you can plan out your maneuvers well in advance almost the whole way. Alright, so this is going to be a burn that's just going to be straight up a tiny little baby burn directly in the path of where our momentum is already taking. So we're just going to prograde burn for a little nudgy nudge to correct our course, to get ourselves on a MinMus intercept, and then we just got to fix our orbit there. I've still got 4,000 Delta V, so we got plenty of Delta V for anything we could possibly need. You played Need for Speed Underground a long time? Oh yeah, well, Need for Speed Underground came out, what, like 20 years ago? 15 years ago? Something like that? Maybe I'm thinking it's longer back than it really is. I would be more shocked if someone had played Need for Speed anytime recently. They're actually slightly off from my prograde. So very, very light burn. I dislike... I can't really see. Alright. That's giving me a MinMus encounter. We're not gonna fight with that. So let's get to around here. Amusingly enough, we're going to have a near encounter, and it's going to have just enough gravity to give me a near encounter a full orbit later. So, if we were to go around, let's say, like right around our apoapsis, what can we do? Can I start to drag you back? Enough that we can... Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to drag it back enough to force it into the orbit. Okay, so that gets me a really, really close orbit if we do that. And with that, we can start burning as we get close to it there to pull it out of that into an actual orbit. Because I do need a stable orbit for it to count. I don't have any specific orbit that's required. It just has to be a stable orbit. These people should really, really have been more specific on what they wanted me to do. But that's okay. Sadly, we haven't unlocked the science lab yet, so I don't have much value in having a permanent station other than if I was going to do like a refueling station and all that. And I just don't see that as being particularly valuable for what we're doing right now. But I do think we're going to unlock the science lab next to give me a reason to have permanent stations. Because then I could just let the permanent station just do science for me for a while. I want to get closer to that. It's way too far out to burn. Because while we're close to it, we're also moving at absolutely, tiny microscopic speeds because we're at the far extreme of our orbit. And it's almost exactly retrograde. Almost. I need to get closer than that. I want to be within at least a minute of it. That's probably fine. We're going to do the tiniest little baby burn. Too much. And our goal here is to bring this down. I just realized that's the second pass, not the current pass. Cancel all that. Alright, well let's hope this works out the way it's supposed to. So we're gonna warp all the way over here. Because I goofed at what I was looking at. So here comes MinMus. So if I were to go now and add a maneuver, start burning this way now, it wouldn't meaningfully change the interaction. But if we were to go here, how much delta V do I gotta pour off before we actually get in orbit? That is not at all what I want for an orbit. We're just gonna have to take our chances with this one. and warp over here. We've got our interaction here. We're going to be going past it at a pretty fast clip. Can I reasonably pull this back? I mean, I can make it a direct shot there. That doesn't help us. Cancel that maneuver. It's like right at the AP. There, which is making it hard to click on. What if we go here? Try and find a sweet spot for you. You don't seem to change my interactions. I'm not sure it's actually calculating the interactions with MinMus much. The other thing we could also do is change this to target. Retrograde from the target. Which this is usually how you deal with trying to land or trying to meet up with another thing. Is we could potentially do this. Now the problem with this is you can't really do this using the maneuver calculations. And the question is, it keeps popping back and forth on how it's affecting the periapsis. Because the idea is to change your relative... speed to your target. It is bringing down the periapsis a lot. I've got a lot of delta V. And that is massively increasing the distance we have our interaction with MinMus. At this point, we're going to interact with MinMus such that we slingshot it. But if we keep doing that, we're going to keep meeting it up. And if we get to the point where we're going to nearly hit MinMus, that should give me the opportunity to have all the time in the world I need to burn to pull it into an orbit. Because we are using a poodle thruster, which is not exactly the strongest. As long as that periapsis is coming down, we just need to orbit. There's no rules. As long as it's considered an orbit of MinMus, it's good enough. We are slowly changing our orbit. Yeah. No, it probably will be. It's that I need to make sure I have enough time that I can burn at the periapsis. We're not using a very strong thruster. And so my concern is not having enough time to kill my momentum. But as long as that periapsis is continuing to come down, I've got the delta V for it. It's just if I have the runway up for it. I'm very lightly burning. I'm honestly curious if I keep doing this, if we would eventually have it where, because we're only moving so little past it, that it's gravity to pull it in. Yeah, no, that's absolutely. Alright. Because before we had a very quick interaction with MinMus. That should be an extremely long interaction with MinMus. All the time in the world to burn. But before I was kind of just whipping right past it. But that's what I was doing, is I was burning to make it so we would go along it as opposed to across it. Okay. Yeah, because we only have, now it's like 3 hours and all that. So switch to orbit, switch to retrograde. We're already facing retrograde. Alright, let's get closer. Maybe like 146 MS relative. And that was when I burned it down from his like 400 or 500 MS. We can go closer than that. We'll have time. Yeah, that's pretty close to yeah, we can just do a very light burn. I want to do it. Yeah, even at its light, it's pushing back the periapsis more and more, so we can get closer. So the closer we are to the periapsis without passing it, the more efficient we're going to be on our pulling ourselves in orbit. But if I could use the throttle and the time is going up, that means we're fine. Sometimes you still think about the goofy glitch in the old days, where you got quadratic efficiency gains for low throttle. Gotcha. I have no idea where it's at now. These days I just have a tendency to use the low throttle. Like, we're close enough to the periapsis. We can just do a very light burn. Just let it slowly arc. In the meantime, while we're doing that burn... no, because I'm going to instinctively EVA, and then someone's not coming home. We could burn more. Because we should see that come around and, like, very rapidly, this will, like, suddenly bend around it and it'll be good. Let's see, old bug long time ago, 10% throttle would use 10% of the fuel on top of 10% is already supposed to use. Oh. Alright, and really ease off, and we are officially in orbit. Like I said, we don't need to do anything special in orbit. We just need to be in orbit. We got a bunch of contract completion stuff. Let's just make sure. So, we have the people who just wanted to orbit Kerbal on board because it was convenient for me to do that since I had to have a facility supporting at least 5 Kerbals. There is the mission we were doing right there. But the other important thing is we are sitting here around a planet we haven't orbited yet in this run. I'm going to go here and say crew report. Yes, I'd like to keep that. Did I forget the Science Junior? Ooh. It's fine. It's not worth resetting. There's the temperature. There's the log pressure. There's the goo. And then, meanwhile, if we look at our crew... Automatic EVA disabled. Activate hatch. Oh, I need to shuffle you around. That's fine. I've got people blocking other people. So EVA you. So you're going to do an EVA report. Congratulations. It's always funny in these high orbits how slow you go. Like, yeah, we're in a rocket at rocket speeds, but if there were a road out here, I've driven faster than this. Yeah. Well, it's all relative, is the whole thing. Okay, so with all that, we're going to go ahead and stuff it in here. So collect all that science in there. Close that for a moment. So that was in high orbit. We still do have a lot here. So what I could do is... How much would it take me to bring that in? Just like a couple delta V? Yeah, it's basically nothing. It's going to bring you in for a really tight, snug orbit here. That should give me... A quick save before we do this maneuver. It should give me within, like... Yeah, 15 of the surface. So that's a tiny little baby orbit. So go ahead and bring that in. Because they only had to do this. Like, you just had to put the station there, give a thumbs up, and then the moment we did that, you're like, okay, we've done our job. We're taking it back now. If we had the science lab, I would keep it here. Alright. Get you set to retrograde down just 16 delta V. Because then if we take a very close orbit, I should be able to do another round of science. Which I do have a second goo thing. I'm still a little annoyed at myself I forgot the Science Junior, because that's actually one of the better value science things for just stuff you shove on and you hit and go, but... That's fine. We'll be back to MinMus sooner or later. Okay, so we're just watching our periapsis, which is the lower end of the orbit. I want to get pretty close without just slamming into the surface. "15 kilometers. So let's go ahead and bring it all the way around here. Give ourselves a nice close view. Where is one of my tail fins? Alright, so let's see. If this counts as, like, a different region. That's literally what I'm doing. We did the high orbit. That's still considered high orbit. Okay. So don't do that yet. We're still high orbit for the moment. We're supposed to get down to 15 kilometers from the surface. Okay, and that's low orbit, so we'll keep your study there. We'll log the pressure. In hindsight, in the future... There we go, we got the other goo. Keep that one. So that's our two goo things. We'll get our crew report. Good to go. Jebediah can hop out. Get an EVA report. Good to go. Hop back in. And now I go to storing all this. And close all that up. So we've got both high and low orbit MinMus science. We got a lot of science on board. So now the big thing here is to get out of here. So it might work really well is if we're quick about this maneuver and we have our AP going off, we'll be thrown off the back direction of MinMus orbit, which should drop us in pretty well. It's honestly not terrible for like 3 Delta V. But can we adjust this more? That's what I'm liking to see. If I'm going to do the maneuver, I got to do it now. As much as I want to wait. The periapsis is coming up fast. Yeah, that should be fine. I've got almost 4,000 Delta V to work with to get home. Okay. Keeping an eye on my periapsis that I'm bringing closer and closer as we're doing this. So basically where we did a minor slingshot, okay, where we did a minor slingshot on the moon to get out here, I'm doing a slingshot off of MinMus, counter to the rotation of MinMus, so that if we're going, 1,000 kilometers per second this way, I'm trying to rob it of like, 200-300 kilometers, which means that's that much more I don't have to fight. The article says if you can manage to angle it so that your orbit's going straight in, that's another option. And honestly, that's probably the right option a lot of times, but that's fine. We're good. We can go ahead and get to MinMus orbit, escape over here. I've got all the Delta V in the world to get ourselves home. With the amount of fuel I have, we could just retrograde this back home. You don't need to necessarily wait. I'll quick save before we do it just in case I'm entirely wrong. But with that, we should be able to retrograde, bring the periapsis up into the point we would get into hitting atmosphere. And then as we go in, we'll switch the other side and just burn whatever fuel we got left to bring both of them into the atmosphere. That's retrograde. Why? Why is our retrograde orbit? Let's fast forward so we're not near MinMus real quick. There we go. That's the reason I was like, wait a second, this is not working. This is pulling us into MinMus's orbit again. Even though we had, like, what I thought we had completely escaped. I guess we're just, like, in the last little bit. So we were still adjusting our orbits relative to MinMus, versus now it's realigning us to adjust our orbit relative to Kerbal. Now, the big thing we gotta watch here is accidentally catching the moon on the way in, and either slingshotting it or something like that. that could get us into trouble. But we can adjust if needed. This far out, it wouldn't be too hard to fix. But almost any moon interaction here would be bad for us. Because we're trying to drop in, and it's going to either, like, give us more speed passing it. The odds that we can use it to rob ourselves of speed isn't going to do much. If anything, we'd just redirect it as we slowed down to just getting in orbit closer to the moon. Okay, so just bringing it on in. Start backing it off. Because ideally we're aiming for that to be like 55, 60 kilometers out. So that way we definitely would be slapping atmosphere pretty good. But you don't want to just fully drop into atmosphere. We probably could survive that. But, that can get real dodgy. I'm going to aim closer to 60, because we'll have plenty of fuel that as we get close, we can bring it down as much as we want. Alright, we're down to 250 kilometers. 200 kilometers. 175, 150... Hey, Blind! Thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had yourself a good stream. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm trying to not meet Kerbal at speed. But check out Blind Earl. Absolutely fantastic content creator. Plays a lot of Dwarf Fortress and similar games like Caves of Cud and all that kind of stuff. Highly, highly, highly recommend checking out. Good times over there. Fellow member of the Halcyon Frequency stream team, the stream team I am on. But welcome in, Raiders. And thank you again so much for that raid. So we are working our way back down to Kerbal right now. We just did a orbit of MinMus, which there is not a real-life solar system equivalent. In Kerbal Space Program, their equivalent of Earth has 2 moons, and MinMus is the farther out moon. So we went ahead and checked that out real quick. Finished some contracts. They said, hey man, could you go ahead and put this orbit that can put 5 people on, around MinMus for us? They said, absolutely. No problem. And we put our orbit, and they said, good job, here's your money. I said, cool. And then I took the station back. And now we're taking the station home. A new periodic game drops tomorrow? I am not familiar with that individual. What games have they done? I'm bad at names. Alright, so we're getting ready to be at Periapsis. Oh, Fable! Okay, yeah, no, I'm very aware of Fable. Oh, okay. Well, you've named... I've played 3 of those games extensively and had fun. Magic Carpet I missed. But Black and White I played a ton of. Populous, that's a name I haven't thought of in a very long time. But was a game I played extensively. And then Fable I had plenty of time there. So now we're going to go ahead and bring in our Apoapsis because we coming home. Yeah, no, I've had Magic Carpet come up a couple times. Like, I vaguely remember hearing about it. It was just one of those things, the classic, a bajillion games are coming out at any given time. You don't have time for a bajillion games. Something's not going to make the cut. And especially back in those days, it was really easy to completely miss that something had come out at all. Considering, like, some of the primary ways we found about games in that days with television commercials. Alright. So we are going to have, like, a spare 3 plus, well, roughly 3,000 Delta V. So this obnoxiously over-spec'd rocket we've got will absolutely do the job. We are not going to be doing a second orbit. I am just going to keep thrusting down until this is going to stay in atmosphere. We'll kick off the the giant fuel tank and everything, because the rockets we're using, they work in atmosphere, but they're terrible. So most likely, they won't be able to keep the giant fuel tank they're attached to from smashing into the ground at speed. But we've got parachutes and all that for everything else. And where the entire giant fuel tank and engines come down, that's not my problem. It's not my department. For another black and white game, if you've not seen Syntopia, that game is a wild one where it's like kind of black and white meets factory automation meets tycoon-ish. It's really kind of blurry between those lines. It definitely kind of hits a little bit of all of them. Because you got like the whole going to the surface, you know, kind of god thing going on that black and white has. And the only factory automation is the souls when they die and they go into hell. The whole thing where it's like, okay, you know, you'll have them come in and be like, okay, if you have this condition, go this way, that condition, go this way, that condition, go this way, you process these ones here, and then, like, if they're processed enough, you send them on their way. If they're not, you loop them back into your system. So it's kind of like not true factory automation. You see now that hand for slapping is in the trailer. Classic black and white. I'm changing up our tactic. We are full send retrograde. No hand in Syntopia? No, just instead light... Well, actually, so you don't slap them, but you can pick them up and hurl them out in the distance. But yeah, no, it's not exactly the same thing. But it definitely kind of gets a little bit of those itches. I definitely remember, you know, black and white, you'd have... I knew your pet... I remember they could eat people, and sometimes it'd break your buildings. I don't remember what else they do, but I remember there was, like, one time, and I couldn't tell you what it destroyed. But I ended up having it destroy something I really need. I got frustrated, just like smack, 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 smack. And you're like, okay, actually, this is a little over the top. Next time you use to build this rocket, can you add a docking port to the side of the tanks? Leave it in orbit as emergency refueling station? I mean, I could. Realistically, what I'm probably going to do is once we get our science lab, which when this lands, we'll probably have enough science for it, I will likely make a permanent station that includes fuel. And I could very well use this as the base. Just take the front end here, change it up to be more suited to what I need, and then just make a permanent science lab, which I do actually have a contract right here for making a making a station around Kerbal. That's why I grabbed it. Because like we're right about to get the science lab. I can just take a big rocket like this, make it to accommodate whatever that requirement is, give it its science lab, give it a permanent scientist on board and whatnot, and just let it churn out science. And then we'll end up needing to start to recruit more Kerbals. Yeah, so this is going to be coming down pretty fast. But since I don't get to keep the fuel canister anyways, it doesn't matter if I go, well, I don't need that last 1200 Delta V. It's like, nah, just burn it. Burn it all. No reason not to. And there's no way this is going to do like the SpaceX landing straight up. This little rocket here does not have the force to hold these tanks. So very likely we'll end up having this just gradually come down faster and faster if we try and do it that way. That said, our lateral motion's going to be nothing, which is probably actually really bad in hindsight. Because that means instead of going in the atmosphere and slowly losing speed by going around and using air friction for braking, we're just going to right into the atmosphere at speed, which means we're going to get into denser atmosphere faster. Hey! Later, and thank you so much for the 1,000 biddies. That's incredibly generous of you. I really do appreciate it. It means a whole heck of a lot. So thank you so much for that. Alright, so we are about to run out of Go Juice. And we are right about to start hitting the atmosphere. And so thank you so much for the Gigantify and all that. I appreciate that as well. Alright, we are officially in atmosphere. Granted, we're far enough up, it's not going to make that big of a difference yet. Okay, I need to turn you around before everything goes absolutely terrible. That's right. I actually don't want to turn you... Oh, put that away. You're just going to snap off in the heat. Okay. So we do have a heat shield down here that should protect us on entry as long as we don't spiral out of control and then rip apart. We should be fine. But any second now we're going to start smashing into the atmosphere. We've already got our parachutes ready to deploy the moment they're able. We've got some drag chutes on the top, some regular chutes along the sides. So dragging in, it'll be like, it should hold the orientation we need it. And then the moment the other chutes go, it'll turn sideways. So we hopefully have as much surface area as possible when we hit the water. And then that does not have parachutes. So we're starting to slow down. We should see that just smash and explode into the water. Assuming it doesn't drift too far, of course. Okay, we are wiggling a whole lot. We are not losing as much speed as I'm hoping for. It's actually slowing down because it's getting more drag from the air. We didn't get any wind against us. We were just slowed down enough coming in. That actually worked out pretty okay. Now, as long as that doesn't come down on top of us, we're fine. Statistically speaking, we should be pretty safe, though. SAS off at this point. Let the parachutes do what the parachutes are going to do. You're getting a little closer than I like. I think it's going to miss us by a lot. Goodbye. Yeah, statistically, because there is a lot of space. By the maths, if it's moving anything but a straight shot down, it should go somewhere away. There's a lot more miss than there is hit potential. And at around 3 kilometers, it should explode from smashing into the water at speed. Any second now. Okay. The drag chutes are fully deployed. And now I'm going to speed things up because we don't need to watch this safely drop in at like 5 meters a second for 1,000 meters. Okay, and now's where it tips to the side. It's not exactly what was planned. It's still probably fine. And in a minute I'm gonna have to step away. My wife is probably already home. I just noticed the time. So as soon as we get this down, I'm gonna quickly take a short break to welcome my wife home really fast. And then when we get back, we'll probably be doing the switch over. I do have a sponsored segment for War Tales, which is a turn-based tactical game. That we'll be doing that for probably a couple of hours, checking that out. And then, depending on how things go, we'll either do more of that, or we might switch back to Kerbal Space Program, or we might do Farm Sim, or we might do News Tower. Ask if she brought us gifts. But yeah, so I'll have that going in here. But it'll take like a minute for me to do the switch over anyway, so I'm going to run and, put that little break in there to give me time to switch over. And we should be fine. We're coming down only at 5 meters a second. That's a relatively safe drop. We just kind of poke right into the water. And settle in. And recover our vessel. So we did finish I think it was 3 missions. The big one was getting around MinMus, but more importantly, we got science. And we probably got a ton of it. Not as much as I thought. Only 300. I mean, I guess we didn't go down to the surface, and the surface science is the good science. Yeah, that's still 300. 300 will help a lot. We also got paid. And we got people who leveled up. All of which is good. So, with that said, what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to quickly save before I forget. I'm going to be stepping away for just a couple of minutes to welcome my wife home, get all that sorted out. We'll come back. We're going to switch over to our sponsored segment, playing some War Tales. We'll do that for a little while, and then once that's done, we will see where the night takes us from there. So with all that said, I'm going to be back in just a couple minutes, and thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's get everything switched over. Toom wasn't home yet. She had just texted me being like, hey, traffic's bad, running late, and all that stuff. Alright, so, even though I'm sure we just saved, we're just going to go ahead and save, because everyone knows when you hit save once in a game, you've got to hit it at least one more time or it doesn't happen. That's not really a thing. But what we're going to be doing now is we are going to be doing a quick switching category. That's because we got a sponsored segment, all that, so, you know, anyone who hangs out, it does really help me. There is a link on the top of chat that will take you to the games page and all that stuff. We'll get all introduced here in just a moment. So it's going to take me a minute to get all switched over. Those over on the YouTube side, the stream will come down and then come back up because that's, you just can't switch categories on the YouTube side and have it work correctly. That's just not how it works. So I'll be back over there. With that said, give me a moment to get everything switched over. We're going to be checking out War Tales, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a turn